Hello, Troopa. Is that you, sir?
This is the one and only.
The one, the only DJ Troopa. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat, man. How you doing this evening?
I'm pretty good. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing super fantastic. Sorry, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat. Give me a second here. I
Yeah,
apologize.
we'll fix that frog.
Yes. What the hell is wrong with me, man? Calling you with a frog in my throat. What what I'd like to do is start off with some fun questions. For those who don't know DJ Troopa, it's time you recognize. Google him or look him up on the internet too. But the first question I'd like to ask you is, if you could travel at any point in time, where would you like to travel to?
I'd like to go to Scotland.
Not where, when, but okay. We'll say Scotland.
When?
What era would you like to travel to Scotland in? Right now?
I know. I would actually like to travel in the, let's say the William Wallace days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, clans fighting clans, all that kind of business, because I think that was a really interesting time for Scottish history. So I'd like to experience my family, because my family's tree in Scotland goes back a real far ways. The name Mackey. The original name of my family is Mackey, and it goes way back in Scottish history. So I'd really like to see how far back in the history my family goes in Scotland. And as far as my grandparents concerned, is my family goes back pretty far in Scotland, actually.
Well, that's pretty cool. And you know what? The other really cool thing is that you'd get to meet Mel Gibson, right?
Oh, for Mel Gibson, he only played one role doing Braveheart, and he did a shit job at it.
He did a horrible job. I don't know what the praise about that movie was. I cannot get through it. I'm like, it's a horrible movie. It sucks. But
to tell you the truth, though, it was to tell the story of William Wallace is one thing. The way to have an American actor to try to do a Scottish accent, you could tell in some scenes that he was pushing it, but all in all, it was a good enough movie for me to sit through. But I like Mel Gibson as an actor in other movies, but I don't think he should have took that on his role and said, "Hey, I'm going to direct this movie and do Braveheart and make it the way it was." I mean, like, there were some memorable scenes in that movie, considering that he yelled freedom at the end, and I'm pretty sure that till this day there is some people that still joke about that freedom spot at the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it's a good story. But I wouldn't have. I don't think I can sit through that movie as like what you said. I can't get to the end. I'll watch the movie halfway through, and I'm like, okay, I'm done.
And you know what? It reminds when you're saying him directing, and it reminds me of that other movie he did. Was it him? No, it wasn't him. It was Kevin Costner. He's another one that was just a genius for directing and starring in his own films. Waterworld.
Oh, of course he was.
Remember Waterworld? What a great movie.
Waterworld, that was a terrible movie, but Dances with Wolves was a
well, that's a good movie.
4-hour yawn.
That's a no. I like Dances with Wolves. I'm with you. I get why it's a yawn, but that's one of the decent ones. And to be honest, I know he didn't. I think he directed Field of Dreams, but that was always the one that won me over. But like The Postman, I think was another one he did. It was just like, why?
Postman was shit.
Yeah, it was shit. Why did they give those guys money? Like, anyways, let's dive into my next question. Next question, this one's special for you. What would your spirit animal be, Troopa?
My spirit animal?
Yeah.
My spirit animal would have to be a ram.
Okay.
I love rams. I love the way they look. I love the fact that they're mountain goats, and I love mountains. There's just something about the Scottish mountains and mountains in general, but the way they fight, the way they look at each other and get on their back legs and march 30 steps before they step on the front ones and smash each other in the head. And you can hear the clack of their horns hitting together for miles because of how hard they hit each other. And I think that is phenomenal. Like, you have an animal that has power in their head, just in their head, and considering that humans have some serious power in their head, but they do stupid things with that power. But you have these animals that are just animals, and they have that amazing power, and all they do is they protect themselves with it. And it's all in their heads.
Well, hold on. They do some stupid shit too. My buddy was telling me, nothing against Rams for my Ram viewers out there. But he was telling me a story of he was at a zoo, or it wasn't. It was a petting zoo kind of thing, and they had the female goats, I guess, on the other side, separated from the males, and the males were ramming their heads into the poles, just trying to break the fence down to get to the females. And it's like,
yeah.
that's, to me, that's not intellect. That's not. Now, if I saw a human being doing the same thing, I would find it humorous. Ramming his head.
That and he'd be crazy.
Well, and that's the difference in our strength in our head. I wouldn't say that we're necessarily the most strong-headed. We may be the most bull-headed. And it's interesting to hear you say that that's your spirit animal, because I do visualize, like, I don't know you very well, but I've heard you in conversation, and you are very aggressive, and you're definitely calling a spade, and I know what you're thinking because you're speaking it, which is very Ram-like. You're very in touch with yourself, I guess.
Well, believe it or not, my sign is an actual Ram sign. So I didn't even know that until later on in my life. That when I liked Rams, and I liked the Rams at a young age. Then as I got older, I found out that my sign is a Ram sign. I was like, well, that kind of explains a lot.
Are you Aries? Is that an Aries sign?
I am.
When's your birthday?
Sorry?
I'm on March the 30th. I am also an Aries. When's your birthday?
April 5th, brother.
Nice. Two fires in the house right now.
Absolutely. Aries all the way, brother.
With that, what would you say is the best horror movie ever made? Favorite horror movie?
My favorite horror movie, besides the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, I've always been a fan of those ones, especially the last one. One of the last ones that came out was Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I like any movies that have to do with exorcism. The Exorcism of Emily Rose was one of my favorites, and of course the original Exorcist was also, and still is, one of my favorite horror movies.
No, man, nobody can act like Linda Blair, man. That part where she spun her fucking head around, you don't see acting like that nowadays. She crawled on the ceiling.
Stuff and then jabbing herself with that crucifix. I mean,
fuck me.
Dude, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't know you were in the interview and all that, and I didn't want to do that, but you did it. So you took the word out of my mouth. Go Aries.
There it is. And you know what I say to people who wonder about the F-bombs on my podcast is, I'm not getting the clicks that some of the other people get, where they have to sponsor, what do you call it, censor their shit. So it reminds me, the metaphor I use is like the high school dealer who used to call him for weed, and he'd be like, dude, don't say weed on my phone. And you're like, dude, you're a high school fucking dealer. Who gives a shit about your phone? Who's listening to your phone? Like, so I feel that way when people are like, can we swear? I'm like, dude, nobody's listening to us right now. I've got like 400 listeners. That's what I've got. Trust me, YouTube is not fucking knocking on my door right now. But, and that's not to say that hopefully in a couple of years I get to the point where I have to come back and edit these videos. But for now, no. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Talk freely.
Well, believe it or not, man, with what I've been watching the shows that you've been doing with Blush and Killa, and I have to say, man, it's big ups on you.
Oh, thank you.
For putting the time in on doing this, and even putting the time in towards me right now, because considering I've been running DJing, I picked up my first vinyl in '97. I started playing out in 2000 on vinyl, then got into the digital. I've never had anyone say, hey, man, I want to do an interview with you. And when you said that with me, I was like, absolutely. Actually, sorry, I'm wrong. There's one guy named Michael, of course, from the Dub Hub guys. He wanted to do an interview with me, and I never got back to him on it because my schedule got too busy. But that was one of the first guys I did. But you're the second guy. But actually, you're the first guy I actually got back to.
I was going to say, you never got back. Well, if you're watching, Mike, I know Dub Hub. Those guys, I don't know if they're still around, but fucking reach out to Troopa. He'll do an interview. I appreciate you saying that. Obviously, I was doing this podcast for a couple of years before I decided to do the drum and bass segment. And the thing that made me do it was I have lots of people on my Facebook. And as I was doing my podcast, they would ask things like, about the drum and bass world and stuff. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should just do an interview with Marcus and we'll talk about this stuff. We'll talk about what jungle music is, why different DJs, like Marcus and I weren't able to elaborate. He got tied up and he had to go. But we were going to talk about, because people will ask me, like, you know, what's the difference between a jungle DJ, a hip hop DJ, a trance DJ, a house DJ? Like, they're all DJs, right? And I'll be like, no. And then you want to talk about turntablism. So I wanted to create a platform where I could have a dialogue with people like yourself, where I could approach the topic in a layman's way, that people who maybe have taken for granted the aspect of what does make a jungle DJ different than a trance DJ, and the difference between one guy who's using his mixer more, whereas this guy's trying to beat match and get out of this and into the next track, whereas this guy's trying to juggle and use his fader more. Like, there are different aspects, and just because you're a DJ doesn't mean, you know, a DMC DJ ain't gonna go up and spin a fucking trance set, and vice versa. So there's a lot of ignorance around this, and I wanted to create a platform where we could discuss it, and it's grown. You know, as I'm honored in people that have allowed me to talk to them. I'm talking to you now. I was just talking to another artist from 7 till 8 o'clock, and I'm humbled. I have to say, it's been a great experience.
Who was the one guy you were doing? I seen the other day. He's oh God, what's his name now?
DJ Dominic.
He's not. That's it, Dominic. I've known Dominic from back in like '97 when he used to play at this little club called Sunshine Wings. Yeah, Sunshine. And I knew Dominic from back then.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people, the reason why I interviewed him is because everyone was asking about him. And I personally love Dominic, and like you said, you think he's gone. He's actually going to be coming in. To my listeners, I can talk about this now. On May the 5th, we're doing a special show. OTB Canada is going to be coming over to my place. We're setting up gear, and we're doing a live performance and interview. We're going to have DJ Dominic for 2 hours performing and sitting down to talk with me. And then we've got DJ Saigon and MC Caddy Cat coming in to sit down and talk with me and do it.
Really?
Yeah, so yeah, on May the 5th, it's going to be a live feed. You can watch from 5 to 9. So from 5 to 7 is Dominic, and then from 7 to 9 is Saigon and Caddy Cat. And that's hopefully...
Big up on Saigon. Saigon's one of my homeboys, and big up on Saigon. I love that guy to death. He's been a true soldier, and Caddy Cat, I just recently had the pleasure of... I've always loved Caddy Cat from when I started raving back in '97, and he was on the stage and dropping some of his old school rhymes, and now to have him as the co-host of the Create D&B and the Six show that I do with Chill Will Brockout and MCZ. MCZ brought Caddy Cat on as the co-host, and just to have him come in and spit some of the bars that he used to do when I started, and I wasn't even DJing, I was just going to the parties and seeing him and seeing what he did then, to see him doing the exact same bars. This guy, don't get me wrong, he is one of the best legendary MCs besides JD and Tragedy and Bandit in the city. To have him do those bars over my set and mine and Brockout's set over at Create D&B in the Six now is just phenomenal. And I'm going to say this because you said it earlier, it's fucking phenomenal to have this guy.
Well, no,
I grew up watching to MC over my stuff 17 years later. It is absolutely a dream, a pleasure, and I'm lost for words at this exact moment for what it is. And to have Caddy Cat come in with Saigon is huge. Big ups on you, bro. Absolutely big ups on you on this podcast that you're doing, and the fact that you're doing that. Awesome.
Well, and
you were actually really sick on the sorry to interrupt you. You were really sick at the potluck we had at the Prophecy show, considering that there was like 30 people there, and you brought your gorgeous little dog. You were so chill, man. And that dog is absolutely beautiful. For all those listeners right now that are listening or tuning into the show, this man's dog, beautiful dog.
Here, I got him right here. Hold on. I'll disturb him from his slumber and pick him up and bring him into shot. He's like, Dad, I was sleeping, and now I've got him here, guys. You've seen him before. There he is.
Thanks a lot, Troopa, for bringing him into the shot.
Yeah, thanks, Troopa. Thanks for ruining my slumber. But yeah, no, thank you. And like I say, May the 5th, guys, please tune in. It's going to be a fun time. I have to say, big ups to Saigon and Caddy Cat and Dominic for agreeing to do it. And
Dominic,
OTB.
absolutely. Big ups, Dominic.
And OTB Canada, Christine, and everyone involved that's helping me organize it, because I am I'm technologically inept. But anyways, we've talked about it slightly, and I don't want to dive too far all over the place. So let's try and focus in on your first rave experience. Can you tell me? Do you remember it? Can you share it with the listeners?
Okay, you're gonna have to give me a hot minute here to go back on it. How far can I go on to explaining things on the show?
Go as far as you want.
Can I get into detail?
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right. Okay. So my very first rave was not actually drum and bass. It was a hardcore and trance party, and it was done down at the there was a place down on Elizabeth. I think it was called Elizabeth Street. I forget the name of it at this exact moment, but my friend Muggsy took me down to this show and showed me this, and it was the first time I experienced any hallucinogens or any kind of things that you put in your body. It was the first time I experienced that and experienced the rave part of it, and it was the trance and hardcore. And I was like, that's not really my type of show, my type of deal. Because I heard drum and bass in '94, and my first rave was in '97 or '96, '97. And then when I went to my first drum and bass party, pretty much opened the doors for me. I was a hardcore dancer, and I was always the guy that was like in front of the speakers. And then when I started buying my first vinyl, it took off from there, and I didn't dance anymore. But the experience was one of those things that will never leave you. It's one of those things that's a door opener, and it will be with you for the rest of your life. And it was still to this day, I remember being in that hardcore trance party, and there was this back room, and I met some really good people at this event, and I ended up becoming good friends with them for a lifetime. They had these chairs that were on wheels, and they were like these nice, fluffy, comfortable. They looked like office chairs, but they were not office chairs. They were lounge chairs, but they were on wheels. And we literally turned this back room into a bumper chair festival where we would push ourselves off the wall and ram each other as hard as we could. And I think there was about 15 people involved on doing these bumper chairs, and we actually got so violent on these bumper chairs where the people at the club told us to stop doing it and took the chairs away from us.
You've lost all chair privileges.
Yeah, we lost all chair privileges pretty much because we were just getting so out of hand with the bumper chairs. I think I actually got elbowed in the face by my friend when she was pushing herself off the wall and was coming into me. I got elbowed in the face, and it hurt, but it only hurt for a second because of all the other things that I was telling you about earlier.
Yeah.
But it was one of those moments that were, now I can look back at it and be like, I can go look at my friend Muggsy and be like, do you remember that? And she's like, oh, hell yeah, I remember that. And I'd be like, do you remember the elbow? What elbow? The one that you put into my eye? No, I don't remember that elbow. Then I would have to tell her the whole story. She's like, okay, now I remember that elbow.
Oh, that's
So that's like one of my first experiences and my first rave was not drum and bass. It was I was hardcore and trance.
Well, you know what, I can share in that memory in that I also, it wasn't jungle for me, and I also wasn't about the music for me at first. It was the people. I wasn't like you just described about the crowd for the hardcore trance, and I was going to Rotterdam and Happy Hardcore. Sunshine Wayne's was a place I frequented. And
dude, you were at Sunshine Wayne's, man?
Yeah, I was a candy kid growing up. So
Okay, so then you know what? I've run past you quite a few times because I used to be at Wayne's every weekend at one point. So I know you.
Well, yeah, no, I'm sure we met over the years. I'm sure. Like, you look very familiar when we first saw each other at Prophecy that night. And, yeah, I'm sure if we'll talk off air sometime, and I'm sure if we start naming names, we'll know a lot of mutual friends. But With that,
Absolutely.
I want okay. Then if you didn't start with jungle, for me, Cyrus 6 year was my first party. I went to see Daft Punk
Oh,
and ended up
oh,
going to see Hype and
dope.
GQ. What was your
Oh,
first
dope.
jungle drum and bass experience?
My first drum and bass experience was at the Docks, and it was 3 rooms. And I believe Shy Effects was playing on the main stage, and I walked past Shy Effects as I was going to the bathroom, and I actually mistaken him for another DJ. And he's like, "No, I'm Shy Effects," and my mouth dropped to the floor, and I was like, "No fucking way." And I shook his hand, and I was like, "Dude, I love your shit." And I don't remember who was playing in the other rooms, but
Hold on, hold on. I got to stop you right there, Troopa, because that's a really funny thing that you just said. You told me that you stopped the guy on the way to the bathroom, shook his hand, and told him you love his shit. It's kind of an odd thing to say to a man.
Not exactly like that, bro. Like, I don't want to shake someone's hand and say you love his shit as I'm walking to the bathroom.
I love your shit.
It was just,
Fuck.
it was just one of those things, you know, like you're going through the crowd and you're trying to get to the washroom and you walk into someone's path. It was one of those things. But yeah, I guess my choices of words there were not quite lined up properly.
Well, and if I could say, you're a pretty big guy. Shy FX is a pretty tiny guy, so it was probably a funny encounter to look at to begin with. Like big Troopa and little
Yeah,
Shy.
no, when I seen him, I was like, oh, geez, this guy's that short? Holy! But he was one of the most nicest guys that I think I've ever talked to, besides like Logan B, Mickey Black Market, and a couple other people that I brought over when I was doing my Rather Rude shows. But he's a swell dude. Nothing but good things to say about Shy FX. But yeah, that's one of the ones I remember the most is at the Docks and Shy FX. Never mind the fact that at the Docks also I met UK Apache, and he's if for all those listeners out there, he's the one that did with Shy FX the original Nata. And to have him in Toronto and be able to take a picture with him and meet him was also a real highlight of my life. And there's a lot of people that, you know, like they get starstruck when they meet like celebrities or they meet like rock stars and whatnot. And that was the way I was when it came to like UK DJs when I was buying all their vinyl, especially when it came to Ray Keith. Ray Keith is probably one of my favorite producers. I have a lot of his vinyl, and when I met him, I was starstruck for 2 minutes because I brought him here with another company, and when we went and picked him up at the airport and brought him to the hotel, I met him at the hotel, and yeah, I was pretty much starstruck for about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then I was like, okay, now it's in the business mode. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And he turned around and he was like, Troopa, I like you. He's like, you didn't suck my dick like everyone else does. You're straight to the point and get down to it. And I was like, that's how we do. So Ray Keith is one of the best. Shy FX is a nice guy. Also another dude I'd really like to have the pleasure of meeting is Ronnie Size. Great influence of what I do now. Yeah.
Well, and you know what? Let me stop you. Let me stop you before we start naming off every great UK that's come here, because a lot of them are nice guys. From my dealings with them, they're human beings, and most of them are very grateful for getting a chance to come out here. And if you're the one bringing them, they're more than grateful towards you. With that, I want to talk about, you brought up UK Apache and Shy FX and their influence. And one thing I wanted to say is that song, Original Nata, it kind of gets looked over on its influence and what it did for music. Not just for drum and bass, but for music. The aim and break, I understand it was used prior, right off my top of my head, I think of NWA, Dr. Dre using the aim and break. But what Shy FX did there with the aim and break and what that song did, it broke barriers. It wasn't just a jungle tune. There's people who don't know jungle who know Original Nata.
Yes.
And it, honestly, I'll be like, honestly, to the earth people, if you will, I'll say to them, I listen to jungle, I don't know what that is, and I'll either sing Original Nata or I'll sing Fire by Demolition Man. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I know that. I'm like, okay, that's jungle music.
It's amazing you just brought in Fire, because like those are original. The UK Apache and Fire were pretty much groundbreaker tunes for drum and bass, and you mentioned those, and exactly what you just said. Everyone would know it.
They're barriers. They break barriers, and I said that to. There are certain songs that, in my opinion, they might not get as many plays today as they did. Not amongst us junglists, but to the people that aren't junglists, they're the ones when somebody goes, "Please play me jungle," and Siri goes, "Here's some jungle." It's fucking original meta or fire. But and that's great. That's great. It's awesome. But okay, with that, let me ask you, what are the biggest changes you've noticed in the scene from when you started to where we are today?
All right. So the biggest changes I've noticed from the scene from today to back then is that the amount of people that don't really work with each other anymore. Back in the day, you had so many people that worked with each other and didn't try to compete against each other. You had more peace, love, and unity, not, hey, I want the biggest name or the biggest label. The crowd is something with the scene has dropped, and I don't know if it's because people just got old and stopped coming out to jams, or like there's some people I still talk to nowadays that don't go to jams anymore, but they're die-hard drum and bass lovers. They just don't go to jams anymore. So there's a lot of people out there that are still drum and bass or jungle lovers, love it to death, but will not come out and support shows anymore, or even come and see the DJs that they wanted to see when they were younger, when they had the opportunity to. I just think it might be a little bit more competition now, and it's not about the peace, love, and unity anymore. It's about the I'm going to throw this jam, and is it going to be against another person, or is it going to be against another company? And if it is, big whoop, I'm getting the person to come here anyways. I mean, if anyone that hears this disagrees with me, then they can disagree with me, but it's just from my experience from starting out in 2000 to come up to now, and you got guys like Mr. Brown and Marcus that really do put a lot of time into the scene and still keep it going, considering that a lot of people have come in and gone out of it, like myself and people like you, and there's a couple other names that I could go off with that still fight to keep the scene alive and keep it going in Toronto, but it will never be the way it should be, but I don't think it ever would be the way it was back in 2000, 2001, 2005, where it was like you could go to a Next Junction party and there was like 1,500 people there, or you could go to I don't even remember the last time there was a 3-day, but the 3-day was always sold out, or you go to a Big Bud, Gunja Smile, all of those parties were always rammed, always big events, always big headline DJs, always supporting the local DJs, and there was multiple rooms. One thing that people don't do nowadays is all ages. You don't see much of all ages anymore. The reason why I don't think people do all ages anymore is because too many people in the scene that are older complain about the younger crowd. They're like, oh, there's too many young people at the show. There's too many young people. I go to this party and there's more people in the drinking area than there is out in this area. Why is the drinking area over here when it should be out here when there's more people? The reason why is because I guess people are afraid of change. Because I tell people, you were that raver. You were that young person that came to the rave or came to their first show, and I bet you there was that old person that was sitting in the background going, there's this young person. Who's this young person? So I have to turn around and be like, hey, do you know what's keeping the scene alive? Do you know what's keeping us going? Is those new people coming in. Even though they might be doing some bad steps, doing some bad drugs, or being careless because they're young, which every person that I know did the exact same thing that they were younger, did the exact same thing. I don't know what it is.
Well, if I can, hold on, I'm going to stop you there for a sec, Troopa, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I've talked about this topic on other podcasts I've done, and the common denominator is the liabilities for the promoter. All ages is something a lot of promoters would like to do. And as for people not liking that there's beer gardens or that they have to drink in a designated area, that's not what deters promoters from throwing all ages. What deters promoters is the liabilities of what's happening with our drugs right now. And it's not necessarily just reckless users. Yeah, you're always going to have those kids that use too much and overdose. It's the innocent people that are getting killed by things like fentanyl. And we've lost our preventative measurements. Like I was talking to somebody about an organization called In the Loop, which when I reached out to them, it turns out they only do stuff overseas, but they put me onto a company that is basically Canadian harm reduction, and they will come to our parties and they will test drugs if people are willing to let them do that. So before you take your substance, you give it to them, they will test to make sure that what you're taking is what it's supposed to be before you take it. Or you bring a little bit of what you've already taken to them so that if you're not feeling well, they know why you're not feeling well. Because one of the problems today is people will overdose, and when you ask them what did they take, nobody knows. So it's up to the responsibility of the user to utilize these services, but it's also up to us as promoters to utilize them. So when I speak to Canadian Harm Reduction and they say, yeah, we're willing to come out to your event, when is it? And then I speak to a promoter and I go, what do you guys do about harm reduction? And they go, what are we supposed to do? I'm like, well, there's a disconnect here. You guys need to talk to each other, because these are the preventative maintenances we need to put in place if we're going to throw in all ages and do it in a way that we have preventative measurements in place so that when it does happen, because we're not going to stop it from happening. We agree on that. We need to have the safety nets in place so that when it does happen, these people are taken care of and we don't have deaths, lawsuits on our hands, right?
Absolutely. But here's another thing you got to look at too. But back in the day when there was the big raves going on and Mel Aspen shut us down and the cops are saying about, raves and people dying at raves, there was no fentanyl. It was because the amount of which is not around anymore, ecstasy, the different type of ecstasy pills, and people would be mixing the pills and not knowing what's in each pill, and then they would overheat, not drink enough water, and then end up dying from it because of not knowing what they took. Which you're right. You're absolutely right. Getting someone to test their stuff to know what's in it is one thing. And I just know you mentioned fentanyl. Fentanyl is one of those things that's now a serious thing. And so all of those people that are out there listening right now, don't fucks with it. I know people that have messed with fentanyl, have OD'd on it, and are still using it. Which is, hello, you just OD'd on something that is killing you, and you're going to go back to using it? What's wrong with you? That's one of those things. Like I never experienced any of those kind of things where I was like, oh man, I'm took 3 different types of pills and I'm tripping balls. I never did that. I was responsible. I was a responsible user, responsible head on my shoulders, not to go careless and be a guy, I need the next lift. But it's real good to see that, like, even back in the day when there was cocaine that was going around that was real shady, and it was before it was cut with fentanyl and anything else, but there was this group that was I forget the name of the group right now, but they were based in the States, and they had these kits that they would test. You could test your drugs, and I didn't believe this at first, but that you could test your drugs before using them to see what was in them.
Yeah, we called them K kits. We used to get them when I threw parties, and I would imagine you probably had access to them, Troopa, because we're talking like 2002 to 2006 ish, and we would put them on all the tables, like, because the clubs would have those little circular tables throughout the dance floor, and before the party would start, you'd put them all out, and then like through the party, if they disappeared, you'd go put another one on the table, and inside it there were all kinds. There wasn't just tools to test your drugs; they were tools to use your drugs. You had needles, you had railing pipes, and people would think, oh, you're promoting drug use. No, we're promoting clean drug use.
Yeah.
Okay,
like yes, there's drug users, but this is the safe way to use it. Like we're not trying to say, hey man, fuck you. We're saying, hey man, you're gonna use it, do it safely. Like how they opened up, which I don't understand, but they've opened up because heroin users, if they don't get their fix, they get sick and they could die from it. So they opened up those stations or those sites in Toronto where you can go and use your drugs safely.
The thing is about what you're talking about there, those have been going on for a long time. The only reason why they're getting mass media attention is because they went into places like Yonge and Dundas, by Dundas Square. They opened a couple because fentanyl was taking off the way it was. They felt as though they needed to open more of them, and when they did
Right.
that, it obviously hit radars of people. Now, those clean houses where, for instance, I don't know if a lot of people are aware of this, but there's a homeless shelter down by Queen and Jarvis called the Seton House. It's one of the largest hostels in all of Canada, if not
I know,
the.
I know
Do-
that one.
Okay, well, that place on the fourth floor, or it might be the fifth floor now, I don't know. Doctors give out written prescriptions for alcohol. So there are people that live in the homeless shelter that are getting free alcohol prescribed to them. Now, if this made its way to the newspapers and to the mainstream media, people would be like, why do my tax paying dollars pay for alcoholics to live rent free and get fed alcohol? Well, do you want to know why? Because if you went up there and you met those people, you'd realize that those are kind of people that can't live, like you said, about heroin. Same thing with alcohol. If they don't have it, they're going to go out and drink rubbing alcohol, and then they're going to cost us
Yeah.
more in health care. So it's actually cheaper
Yeah.
for us to just do this. Okay? This is the cheapest and safest way to do it. Just like us coming up with kits to put in the rave parties. We're not promoting the use. We're saying it's happening anyways. What's the safest way for us to deal with this? And I just,
Right.
anyways, with that, I want to
That's the
talk.
thing with like alcohol. Alcohol is the same thing as heroin. A person can die if they do not get, because their body gets so used to the alcohol that they can go into shock and die from it if they don't have it. So the doctors are prescribing it to keep them alive.
That's another thing about it too. Alcohol and heroin are two drugs that you cannot go cold turkey without medical. Like I'm a recovered meth addict, and when I was in detox, they put you through my recovery. I'll go through it quickly. So in order to go into a halfway house where you can get help, you need to be detoxed. And when you get detoxed, they put you in a hospital in quarantine, and you're not allowed to have anything, cigarettes or anything. And I'm in there with other types of addicts. I was the only one there for meth. There were alcoholics, heroin addicts, and all that. And I have to say, they had it worse. What they're going through, or what they were going through, and what I went through. Yeah, mine shit sucked, but I wasn't feeling the physical pains that they were. I could see it. Mine was all in the head. There was nothing physical about my withdrawal process other than cold sweats and maybe some twitching. But
Yeah.
nothing like what those guys were. They were in deep pain, and I can't imagine that catch 22 where you need that relief to get yourself out of the pain. So you need to be hurting while you recover, but you need to have medical attention. Like, we're in a quarantined room with 6 nurses and doctors out there. So if one of those guys goes into, a serious revolt or whatever the fuck could happen, there's doctors there to help him, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, with that, let's dive back into some fun stuff about the music industry.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm out of line here, but you're part of the Forward D&B crew, are you not?
I am, yes.
Okay, can you explain what Forward D&B is?
For D&B is a company that Mr. Brown, James Brown, started up. He wanted to do some side things. He's also with Soul Emotion, but he wanted to do his own things regarding Toronto DJs and Toronto MCs, and do his own things with those guys and get more of these people out in exposure. Mr. Brown approached me and said, "Hey, I want to start up this thing." And I said, "Okay, what's going on?" And he told me all about it. And he said, because I did my Rather Rude parties, and a lot of them were successful. He's seen the amount of work and time I put into running those, and he's seen the passion I had in it. So he approached me and said, "I would like you to help me out on this." And I said, "Absolutely." And we started off with Toda and starting off with smaller events to him getting into bigger things. But I'm not going to jump off topic here. Forward D&B was one of those things where we brought local DJs together and showcased a lot of local talent and people that were not getting recognized in the city. So he started that up, and Forward D&B is pretty much taken off. It's got a good thumbprint now in the city, where you got DJs like Remedy, myself, Mr. Brown, just a couple other handful of people that are involved in it. But the forward part of it is he's now turned it into Massive, which is now turned into another big event, which I don't know if some of these viewers that are listening to this know about it, but Massive has been done to the big New Year's party, and Massive has got another big party that's happening out. So the Ford D&B thing was all for Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown started all of that, and Mr. Brown is one of the guys in the city, besides Marcus and a couple other people, that pretty much took me, seen what I did, took me and put me under his wing, and brought me out and showcased me in a lot of his stuff. And I supported Ford D&B and still will support Ford D&B in anything that he does or they do or we do, because of the amount of effort that Brown put into me. I will definitely put that back into Ford D&B. I'm happy to be a part of it, and I'll support Ford D&B until it goes down or until I die.
Whatever comes first, hey.
Yeah, whatever comes first. I told Mr. Brown that I said I wanted him to get me I'm still going to do it. Just times have been tight, but I want to get Ford D&B tattooed on my arm. Because realistically, I started my own label with my friend Jason Wiles, and we started Rather Rude, and then we
is that Wiley?
To a couple of Jason Wiles, aka Wiley, and
I
Neil
remember
Gardner.
Wiley. Where is he? Sorry to go off topic. Wiley. Wait, I haven't heard that name in a long time. What's he up to?
Wiley is still around. He's starting to resurface. He took a break and he had a kid. And he had a good relationship with a woman, which I think he's trying to fix, but he ended up having a child. And like myself, when I had a child, I took a break and I got back into it. He took a break and didn't really get back into it, but he's getting that itchy spinning finger, if you want to call it, and he wants to come back out, so he's slowly coming back out again. But when Rather Rude stopped doing shows, we stopped doing shows. Neil was doing his own thing. Wiley was having his kid. I was still going out and doing my DJing and whatnot, so I guess Mr. Brown picked me up and put me into Forward, and I started doing that. And then, of course, everyone has their own things that they want to do. So I started off with Smashingtons because Rather Rude didn't really come back, and we had some words with some of us had some words with each other, and basically Rather Rude was not going to come back out. So I started my Smashington sessions, and just like 4D&B, but I'm not cutting anyone's toes. That's my thing. And Smashington Sessions is starting to take off. I have my little radio shows that I do here and there called Smashington Sessions, and then it's really cool because I don't know what it was. I was out somewhere. I really don't know how it started, to tell you the honest truth, my friend. I have no idea, but one day I was out somewhere and I said Smashington, and someone jumped on that, was like, that's the sickest thing I've ever heard. And it just rolled out of my mouth like it was nothing. And I never thought that 2 years later I would have Blackley on his radio show saying Smashingtons, or having some guys from UK like MC Decoy and a couple of other MCs from over there, Fun Stuff, using my saying Smashingtons. And to actually sit at home and listen to Blackley, Mr. Blackley himself, Six Deck, Create D&B Master, say on his actual show, Big Up Troopa and Smashingtons, I quite literally shit my pants and threw my phone across the room and jumped for joy. And I was like, who fucking heard that? Did anyone else hear that? Who heard that? And everyone was like, I heard that. It was the biggest thing it was the biggest thing for me to hear that. to hear people that I grew up and still admire listening to saying something that I said 2 years ago. I just rolled out of my mouth, and now people are saying it, and people now know me as the Smashingtons. Like, just now, as I'm on the phone with you, Caddy Cat is calling me, and I know why he's calling me, but to have Caddy Cab, like we were talking earlier, a guy I grew up watching and listening to, for him to turn around and on our Create D&B in the Six show with Brockout, Chillwell, myself, to have Caddy Cad say Smashingtons on Create D&B in the Six, it was, I literally, while I was mixing, I turned to him and I gave him the biggest smile and props, and I was like, yes, bro. To have Caddy Cat be like, Smashington's man, Troopa right here. I was like, this is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And if Caddy Cat hears this, I hope he smiles when he hears this. Cause
you know what? I'll say, if Caddy Cat hears this right now, I'm going to call that he's pocket dialing you right now. If Caddy Cat...
He's pocket dialing me, man. I know it's Thursday night. Timeless. I know what he's calling me for. He wants to know if I'm going to Timeless and if I can pick him up.
Is that what it is? You know what? The only reason why I'm saying that is because the last time Caddy Cat called me, it was a pocket dial. It was funny listening to him try to explain it after. It reminded me of listening to my mom talk how the phone works. Brethren, I swear, I looked at my phone, it was calling you, so I'm like, why am I calling Aaron? And then I go to end the call, and now you're calling me. And I'm like, because you called me, dude.
You know what though, bro? He's got an old style Fido flip phone, so I don't know, man. Because I see him pull his phone out of his pocket. I'm like, what the hell is that, man? He's like, what? I'm like, your phone. He's like, oh yeah, this is my golden child right here.
He's a great guy. I love him. You know what?
No, Caddy is an awesome dude. Don't get me wrong. Totally awesome dude. I love the guy to death, man.
Totally. But you kind of answered my next question. I was going to ask about Smashington. You completely described everything I needed to know. One thing before I get into my last question here, I got to ask you. I know you're a DJ. Do you produce?
I started producing. I started producing 2 years ago, and then my computer crashed, and any tune that I had on Progress was gone. So I had to reboot everything and get a whole new tower, get a whole new line of sound and everything. So I got like this $1,000 tower and like Yamaha speakers.
Have you learned to back up your stuff? Are you still?
Well, that's the thing though, because my father built the computer for me, and he was like, "This is the Cadillac of computers. This is going to be the best." And because I was so stupid with computers, I didn't have a virus program on it. I didn't have this on it, and I was downloading shit. I was opening up emails, and my computer got riddled with viruses. And my computer had like the AIDS of viruses all over it. So I couldn't get anything back. Now I have like 2 terabyte hard drives. The only thing is that I need to get proper reason program. And to my brother Brockout is Brockout learned from J-Line, but Brockout is probably one of the best dudes I know besides Hunger T, RMS Decision, Polaris, that I can just name off the top of my head of producers. But Brockout has this certain sound to him that is right up my alley. And don't get me wrong, like a lot of people have classed me as a jump up DJ. But before I brought Logan D to Toronto, before I brought Mickey Finn to Toronto, before I brought any of these guys to Toronto, I wasn't doing jump up. I was doing jungle, drum and bass. I was doing the old school stuff. And now, because I brought all those guys and I'm getting hooked up with tunes, because now I'm on a continuous list of a small handful of people that get tunes on a regular, and they're new releases. And it was all new dump up stuff. And like, I've been trying to bug Ray Keith for a long time, but Ray Keith has something, I don't know what it is, but he just doesn't hand over things, which is fine. He wants it bought. I totally understand that he wants his tunes bought. Don't get me wrong, people want to get their tunes bought. But I wasn't always a jump up DJ. I'm just now getting classed as one. So I was thinking about putting myself into a little mix of some dark rollers and some jungle, so that people can see that I'm not used to the jump up thing.
It's interesting you say that. I mentioned in my interview with Gremlins, we talked about people being categorized and becoming one-dimensional. Like you no longer are just a jungle DJ, you're a jump-up DJ or a funk DJ or a. It's like, nah, man, you're a jungle DJ. You're supposed to play all of that, all the subgenres, you know. But there is something to be said. And I talked about this in an interview earlier about a crowd expecting a certain thing. For instance, when I pick up a Stephen King novel, I know I'm buying a horror book. But he does write other books under different names, like Shawshank Redemption and Stand By Me. But he doesn't use the same author name. He changes his name. So us as the consumer, we know when we buy that book, we're not going to get the horror movie, right?
Right.
Artists need to do that same thing, I think. If you're going to go up and be... And I'm not saying you have a responsibility, Troopa, because people have labeled you as a jump-up DJ, that you must be that. That's not what I'm saying. However, if you are going to create a persona around your name, for instance, me as Aaron, the podcast guy, versus Vivid MC, the jungle MC guy, I can't expect the same people who like to listen to me do the Vivid stuff are going to like to listen to me do this. So I separate them. You know, you're not listening to Vivid. You're listening to Aaron right now. You know what I mean? But I think it's important as artists that we do that we realize that it's almost an alter ego. It's like, this is my performer. This is what I'm doing. So you could even do that as a DJ. Be like, you know what? When I go on as this name, I do this. And when I go on as this name, I'm more that. You know what I mean? Which you do see performers do it. I can't think of any right off the top of my head right now. But
Dylan Jaws was one guy that changed his name when he would make
Capone.
He would
Capone.
change his name. Yeah, exactly. And the same with Ronnie Size. Ronnie Size would change his name also on some of the things that he released. So I could see that.
There you go.
But I never really wanted to change my name or get another person. Like, it didn't matter. I wanted to be classed as like, oh, Troopa's playing? Oh, yeah, he plays a wide variety of music, not just this. Because lately in my sets, I've been trying to put some Hunger T and some RMS, some rollers, and try to match some jump up into it. And believe it or not, it actually sounds really good when I not trying to toot my own horn here, but when I'm practicing at my house, it sounds phenomenal, and I'm going to say fucking phenomenal. When you're putting some of these dark roller bass lines into a jump-up track where it's got that into the background, and you got this dirty bass line rolling from RMS or Hunger T, and you're just like, wow, I want people to hear this. But when you get the chance to go out and do it, you get into such a groove, and especially with me playing with Brockout, like me and Brockout do back-to-back all the time, and I love playing back-to-back with Brockout. I don't really get the chance to do that. When I'm on my own, then I start mixing in other tracks. Like my girlfriend would be like, oh, you brought in an old school tune into this track. It was absolutely amazing. She's like, you need to do more of that. So I try to do more of that to give more variety in my set so that it's not just a straight jump up set, that it's a little bit of everything. I'll put in some raga vocals in there in the middle of my sets. I'll put in some rollers in the middle of my sets. So I'll do a little bit of jump up at the beginning, then throw in a little bit in the middle, and then go right back into jump up near the end just to finish it off with some bangers. Because a lot of people do like the bangers. I've noticed that some people really like the bangers. And I'm sure you know what I mean by the bangers.
Oh, yeah, and I know the people you're talking about, too. It's the crowd we're getting right now. They definitely do like that. But, okay, with that, I'm going to jump into the last question, buddy. We said we'd do 15 to 20. It's been over 50, and I'm loving this. I really do appreciate you taking all this time to talk.
I appreciate the opportunity for you to give me these. I totally screwed that up. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to have this interview with you, bro.
Oh, no problem, buddy. I've been saying this to everybody. Well, not everybody, but the people I've enjoyed talking to. When I get this setup improved, what I'd like to do is have you come back. We'll do a round 2 and continue for much longer. Would you like that?
Absolutely. Have you ever thought about doing it actually like sitting one-on-one and not like me being in front of you? Because I could do that too.
Yeah, man. That's my goal is to get to that. I'm definitely down for it right now. It's the coordination aspect. Like right now, we're looking at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night, and it's tough. You know, we don't live next door to each other, but. Yeah, as time goes on, I do definitely, like, our next interview will be face-to-face. It won't be one of these. With that, I'm going to give you the last question. I've changed it up a little now because I got sick of asking the same question. It kind of got redundant. People were putting the same kind of thing, so I've switched it up a little. We've still got a vault. We've got 5 items to go into that vault. But for you, I'd like to know if you could put 5 items into a vault that would encapsulate Canada. What would those 5 items be?
A Canada flag.
Number 1. With a Made in China sticker in the bottom right. There it goes.
Oh no, there'd be like a Ford sticker and a Troopa sticker and any other stickers that I had. I could put all stickers in it, but it would probably be like a good bottle of whiskey that was Canada made, a Canadian flag, a bunch of stickers, a set of myself, and probably flyers, a bunch of flyers from like 99 right up until about now, or until when people stopped doing flyers, so that people could see, if it was a time capsule, they could see like what kind of shows happened in Toronto between that decade of how many artists came through Toronto, how many people were at these events, what the promoters put the time into, money and time into these shows, with the amount of these big ass poster flyers and all that they did. So that would probably be one of the things that I'd put into that vault. So yeah, Canada flag, stickers, bottle of whiskey, flyers. Did I match all 5 yet?
I think you got all 5, but the thing that I found funny about the ones you gave is I asked for Canada and you mixed it up. You gave me the rave and Canada, I think. It's like I was expecting to hear more moose.
The raves in Canada, more like.
That's what I got. Which I'm fine with. I'm totally fine with that. But honestly, I was expecting stereotypical. I'd put a moose, I'd put a beaver, some maple syrup, some ham, and a hockey stick. That's more the path of what I was expecting.
I was just gonna say hockey or Maple Leaf jersey or something.
Yeah, right. You know what? I don't know if you're familiar with Alan Cross. He does a segment on CFNY called The History of New Music, and Okay, so I asked him this question, and his 5 were very. I almost want to go back in my archive and pull it out because I haven't asked this question since I asked him this question, and he said a Canadian $1 bill, not a loonie, but the $1 bill. He wanted a CCM Canadian hockey stick, specifically CCM, and I forget the other things, but they weren't your stereotypical like lumberjack jacket and Leafs jersey. It was like deep Canadian roots. I was like, wow, man, this is why you are who you are, Alan. He's got the greatest.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, to say $1 bill, and just when you said that, I'm like, wow, I fucked $1 bill, bro. I mean, that's you know what? Forget that. Throw a $2 bill in there too.
Right? That's how Canadian is that? Or how about all of our fucking coins? Just, you know what I've always loved to see is, you remember those like I Am Canadian commercials for beer?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to see one where a guy goes in to buy a 2-4 and he like bunny ears his pocket with all of his loonies and toonies and dumps it on the counter, and it just says I Am Canadian. You know what I mean? That would be a great. That's all you need to do. Or have a guy at a strip club flicking fucking toonies and loonies at the bitch while she's getting knocked in the forehead.
Oh, yeah! Here you go, honey. Here's another toonie for you.
Honestly, there's something about grabbing an American. Like I was in Detroit in October. That's the last time I was in the States. But I gave a guy some money, and he gave me my change, and I felt like I was rich. I had a wad of ones in my wallet. But they think we're ridiculous. I think they're ridiculous. Like, the change makes more sense to me. To have a wallet full of this cash that makes you feel like you have money, but it's all just shitty ones. Like, stupid. But anyways, Troopa, thank you for taking the time to chat. Please stay on the phone right now. I'm going to say goodbye to the listeners, and I'm going to talk to you, okay? So just bear with me.
No problem, Aaron. Thanks a lot, brother.
No problem. All right, so that was him. That's DJ / sometimes MC Troopa, if you catch him on the mic at the radio show. But yes, thank you so much, buddy, for doing the show. As always, guys, we've got lots more of these to come, and thanks for tuning in. Until next time, peace out.